All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this afternoon session, Policy Innovation and Open Data with the Peace and Security Data Hub. My name is Naoko Takahashi Taymanov. I'm a Political Affairs Officer at the United Nations Department of Political and Peacebuilding Affairs. So before we go to discussion, I quickly want to share some background of this session. So as I mentioned that I'm coming from the peace and security pillar of the United Nations, as well as my colleague Iham here. The trend of sharing and owning data together within the UN and outside the UN has been the biggest issue in the last couple of years. The initiative started even before the COVID pandemic. In 2019, colleagues gathered together and discussed and together developed the Secretary General's new strategy on data, which really encouraged us to share peacekeeping special political mission information on the public sphere. And further, last year, as many of you know, that the Secretary General also announced the new initiative, UNU 2.0, that encourages us to update, upgrade our way of working to sustain peace and security in the world. But it's quite easy to say it rather than actually doing it. So what happened is that, number one, we had a fear of to which extent we can share this data, how it will be used. And number two, we had this concern that how tech-savvy are we, how data-savvy are we? We can disclose the information, but can we actually make it in a very user-friendly manner? So these were two major concerns we had. By developing this Peace and Security Data Hub for the first time a couple of years ago, we can make to the
clicker is there.
Oh, great. Great. So as I said, that we didn't know that who has the data, and we were not sure what would be our user experience. And lastly, how this data will be used, either for public or for perhaps criticizing the operation of the UN.
Sure, anyway, can we do that?
No. Okay, tech challenge. So we, of course, had a tech challenge within the UN as well. What I really wanted to emphasize is that the very core part of this Peace and Security Data Hub project was actually not about the data itself, but it was more about the usability. So for the first time, as a peace and security pillar, we developed the usability testing manual. That means that we standardize how do we engage the customer, the user of our data. And this is the practice we want to revitalize here as well. We have been launched this data hub for a couple of years, and here we are with experts. Oh, great. Thank you very much. So we want to reciprocate this idea to engage with the users, those who are attending here in-person session and also online session, to together discuss how we can revitalize this peace and security data community. So here I would like to hand over to Iham to make a presentation about the Peace and Security Data Hub.
Brilliant. I hope that technology will not sort of wrangle this, but I think the crosswalk between Microsoft PowerPoint and Google's systems might be giving us a little bit of a problem. Okay, so I'm in the information management unit of DPPA-DPO, and together with the innovation cell, we've been co-creating the Peace and Security Data Hub, and we're very excited to show it. We have been growing it over the past few years, as you said, and especially the past month, we were able to onboard a number of new data sets, actually 10 new data sets over the past month, and that's come after a period of hibernation in which we were doing a lot of the back-end work to make that isn't rewarded and often isn't seen, but that enables us to put the Peace and Security Data Hub on a more sustainable footing. So I'll just go quickly over why the hub is there, and then and then some use cases for, and we'll hand over to Eduardo for some use cases on how to use the hub and what to use it for. So this is the current state of data within the UN system. Everybody who has worked in a large organization that hasn't undergone a data or digital transformation will recognize this picture. Anyone who is putting together a report or asked by their managers to put together some kind of evidence for the work that we're doing is tasked to chase around and find out who put this Excel sheet together last time, what was the method, can we replicate it, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no data governance framework for it, and everything is kind of an unruly Excel sheet shared by informal channels. You have to have 15 cups of coffee per day to just maintain your relationship, to have access to the information you need to do your work. So that's really also the case in the UN, and that's what we're trying to change. And this is the future, right? So we are, as information management community, managing the Peace and Security Data Hub. Our goal is to create a centralized data hub of everything that is already published by the Peace and Security pillar. So we're not talking about confidential data or any other type of data. It's already in the public domain. We just want to have it available one place and to see who's responsible for maintaining and updating it, and then enable the research community, member states, anyone else who might be querying our information, access via API, PDF, or any other documents that any other way they want to, JSON, any other way that they want to be able to consume the data. So what is it? It's just an open data portal, for the Peace and Security pillar. We share reliable, up-to-date data on the Peace and Security pillar. It's safeguarded in a governed environment in the sense that we know exactly which office owns it and which office is responsible for updating it. And right now, on a day-to-day basis, there's 2 people working on it, me and heroically, I wish she was here right now, but she really deserves a lot of the credit for fixing the Janie Lingong, who is in our unit and diligently follows up with every single office who needs to onboard their data and make that available. For now, it only includes data from the Peace and Security pillar of the organization. Some of that might be from Department of Operational Support, peacekeeping operations, or special political missions. So it's a way for us to publish our data. And by doing so, it also makes data a bit more shareable. We are part of a wider UN hub and spoke model. So there is a wider data architecture. Some of you might have heard Kirsten talk about this at some point, but because all our data is consumable via APIs, as soon as there's a wider enterprise level platform, we will be seamlessly integrated into it. And so you can see us here as a hub, as a spoke in a larger hub model. What else? And so the idea is, I think some of you might recognize Pathways for Peace kind of shifted. Pathways for Peace is a UN World Bank report from 2016. It provided a bit more of an analytical framework for the UN to think about peace and conflict issues in data terms, and rooted in quantifiable measures, and also calling for us to do more integrated analysis, meaning analysis that cuts across the development or other peace and security humanitarian sectors. So being able to do that is really, really hard, and I've tried to do it in a few contexts within the UN. The hardest part is getting access to your data. And you have to reach out to everyone to kind of pull the data together. And then when you have data, it's not interoperable in the sense that no one is using the same data standards. Everybody knows all of that. The idea is that it will reduce the transaction cost. If it's onboarded to the Peace and Security Data Hub, it's already in the public domain. It won't fix the issues of integrated analysis, but hopefully it will make it a bit easier. Next steps. Okay, so we're here. We have about 42 data sets onboarded on the hub. What we're looking at right now internally is how do we incentivize our colleagues across the Peace and Security pillar to publicize their data? Why should a DDR section or security sector reform section, or maybe even a policy and mediation section, why would they publish data in a structured format, exposing them to risk of getting it wrong? From our perspective in information management unit, we do see that you can't, I mean, it's all good with the policy frameworks, and that does give you top-level cover, but it doesn't really work unless you have, and a lot of speakers have talked about this, you need to drive that from the bottom up, and that's what we'll be trying to do over the next few months with the information management unit. We'll go unit by unit and talk through about their taxonomies, what types of data do they actually already compile, is there any of that actually belongs in the public domain if it's not classified. Identifying the right use cases is not enough. We also need roadmaps and strategies. There is a P5 data officer being hired within the Department of Peace Operations. We will work very closely with that person to help articulate what are the standards that we need to abide by, what are the interoperability requirements, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason that we are here today, I think, one of the reasons we're here today is the involvement of the wider community to ask the critical questions that we need to have asked, so that we can go back to our management and tell them, look, the people demand data. This is, is now incumbent on you to sort of help fulfill that request. So before I actually we go into the breakout sessions to do that, I actually wanted to demonstrate with the good partnership we've had with Eduardo and the United Nations University, what data would act like, what a type of research collaboration would look like that uses the Peace and Security Data Hub as your data broker within the UN system. I don't know if you need full introductions. You've probably been introduced a few times throughout the conference, but maybe associate professor at Columbia. Is that correct? Yeah, I'm getting this all wrong. And then you're also joined by your colleague Chido from.
Yeah, can we have Chido on the screen?
Yeah, you can switch to the next one, and then we'll jump back to this slide afterwards. So why don't you just take it away?
I'll take.
Yeah, please do.
All right, hello everybody. We're here representing the guinea pigs of the Peace and Security Data Hub because we tried it out, we tested it, and we had a lot of fun, actually. And I have to thank you for this collaboration. I'm here with Chido Mutangadura, who's joining us. Hi, Chido.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Okay, great. So we're just going to take a few minutes to, as I said, demonstrate a case study, how we utilize this data. Chido and I are both senior fellows at the United Nations University, and this is a project that we've done in collaboration with the Accept group, and they are the flagship UK conflict research program, one of the flagship UK conflict research programs, focusing specifically on cross-border conflict dynamics. So with Peace and Security Data Hub, United Nations University, and Accept, we've put together this research project looking at the data that was made available. But before we get into what the data actually looks like, I want to hand it over to Chido, who's going to give us a little bit of the research framework, so it gives you an idea of what exactly we were interested in investigating. Chido, I'll hand it over to you. I'll do the slides, so just give me a wink and I'll change the slides, okay?
I'll tap the microphone.
There we go. What a team.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Eduardo. I'm really excited to be presenting this exciting project that I've been working on with the really brilliant Dr. Eduardo. And so this project has been made possible with funding from the Cross-Border Conflict Evidence Policy and Trends Research Project. So a big thank you to them. So my very easy job this afternoon, and in my case this evening, because I am coming to you from Accra, Ghana, and it's around 6 o'clock now, very hot evening. So I'm just going to be presenting the background of the project, the objectives, the methodology, and then I'll hand over to Eduardo to outline some of the preliminary findings that we have. So as the title suggests, we are evaluating the relative effectiveness of peace support operations, specifically personnel, gender, origin, of peace support operations personnel, specifically gender, origin, and status. We are particularly interested in exploring the possible linkages on conflict events related to foreign-based groups. So please switch. And we are looking at 4 case studies. We have MINUSCA in Central African Republic, MONUSCO in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we have UNMISS in South Sudan, and MINUSMA in Mali. So we've included Mali in the study, despite the fact that the mission has come to an end quite recently. This is because of the longitudinal nature of our research, and I will be explaining the research timelines shortly. So we are looking at these 4 case studies. We have excluded the mission in Western Sahara and Abyei because these are disputed regions, and we were working on the assumption that there is a clear distinction between foreign and domestic actors based on internationally recognized state borders. Slide 3, please. So our objective is to gather evidence on how the demographic composition of UN peace support operations personnel interacts with cross-border conflict dynamics, but not just cross-border conflict dynamics, as well as overall conflict dynamics. And then we ask ourselves, so how can this information be used to improve conflict responses? So this is not only to inform, the composition of UN peace support operations, looking at the challenges that, the recent sort of controversies and challenges around the deployment of peace support operations and questions are they fit for purpose? And so looking at Mali that has come to an end, and also the questions that are arising around DRC. But we're hoping that our findings are not only to inform the UN, but also very much to look at the next phase of responses to sort of this regional protracted conflicts on the continent. And so beyond the UN, we are also recognizing that we are increasingly witnessing militarized responses to conflict, ranging from ad hoc military coalitions to deployments under the framework of the African Standby Force. And so it's important then to also inform sort of these new militarized actors on how the demographics can interact with, conflict dynamics. And so with this research, we are using quantitative data from large data sets. The timeline of the research is from 2011 to June 2023. So that is we use these data sets to run machine learning experiments. The first data set that we used was the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project. I know that you've had an excellent presentation on that already, so I won't explain what that is. So from the curation of this, of this data set, we identified 8,659 events across the 4 case studies that involving cross-border sort of armed groups. And so we have over 50 identified foreign armed groups. Of these, just for interest's sake, Mali had the highest proportion of events involving foreign actors, with 60% of the events, of the conflict events there involving foreign armed actors against all the overall conflict events. And so the second source of data, the one that we'll be presenting on more, is the data that we got from the Peace and Security Data Hub, which is on the demographics. Well, I think let's move on to the next. Fourth one. Okay, so we are looking at diversity in 3 dimensions: gender, origin, status. And our aim is to uncover evidence of linkages between the combinations of those 3 dimensions and cross-border conflict de-escalation, right? And so we've made various theoretical propositions. So on status, I think I'm just giving a sample of the theoretical propositions that we have that we will be testing. That we are testing. And then on status, we're asking ourselves, does a higher proportion of civilian personnel correlate with a decrease in cross-border conflict intensity? On origin, we are asking ourselves things like, does the proportion of uniformed personnel from neighboring countries, so these are the regional actors, does it correlate with a decrease in cross-border conflict intensity? So these are assumptions around having good forces in the regional, sort of from regional actors, have more experience with dealing with certain actors, and therefore I think bring some advantage to a peace support operation. And then on gender, we were asking ourselves questions like, does the number of female uniformed troops correlate with a decrease in cross-border conflict intensity? And I think gender is quite an area that we're most excited to be exploring. And then we do have additional, let's move on to the slide 6. Okay, so we do have additional demographic data coming from the data hub, and so some of the theoretical propositions that we have is asking ourselves, does the number of female personnel decrease after an increase in female casualties from malicious acts? So this is not just looking at at conflict dynamics, but also trying to understand the behavior of peace support operations themselves. So that is the background of the study. I hand over to you, Eduardo, to take it from here.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Chido. So I should specify this is a work in progress. So we're still investigating these aspects, but we do have some graphs and visualizations and even a little bit of some initial results to share with you today. But first, I want to take you through kind of the visual journey of what this data looks like in a way that I think is perhaps quicker to assimilate. I'm a big fan of graphs, although my design skill is not up to scratch. But I think that graphs visualization is really the new language of the future. This shows MINUSCA, the number of uniformed military and non-military personnel. So this is important. You may have heard from Chido that we've divided the military uniformed personnel into troops and then non-military, so experts, police, staff. And we're interested in seeing how fluctuations in these proportions pan out in terms of the effectiveness of the mission. So percentages are important for us, the fluctuation of the percentage of the non-military to troop personnel. Also, we're interested in the civilian staff. So different missions have different amounts of civilian staff. And again, if you look at it in a percentage form, you can see how fluctuations there rise and fall. And we're interested in seeing what connection that has to the effectiveness of the mission. Gender, of course, these are absolute numbers for MINUSCA. Gender for civilian personnel as well. We have that data as well through the hub. And then, of course, percentages. So fluctuations in percentages. And, of course, every peacekeeping mission has different numbers. Most we've seen the number of female uniformed personnel has increased. So this is just showing you before and after. Still with MINUSCA, this I think is also very interesting. Fluctuations in the demographic composition of the mission in terms of where are the peacekeepers from? Are they from international? So is it Bangladesh, India, Ireland? Are they from the region, so Africa? Or are they from neighboring nations? And I think neighboring nations is particularly interesting because we have seen that there is some connection there with particularly cross-border conflict. This is in terms of percentages. We're still just on MINUSCA. And this is a before and after. So it shows you how, in this particular case in MINUSCA, the proportion of peacekeepers from international, so outside of the Africa region, is increasing, and so has the ones from the region, while neighboring nations has decreased. Now, remember the risk sort of context. So this one looks at the casualties. Which are the groups that are most exposed to risk according to fatalities? And this shows some fluctuations in that. This is the gender. And you'll see that as, in fact, more female peacekeepers join the fray, you have more fatalities amongst the female personnel. So female personnel facing more risk. Now we're moving on to MINUSCA, and you can already see here how it's a very different situation. You have a much higher proportion of troops to, for example, non-military staff. So less experts, less police, less staff. we're still on MONUSCO here, and you can also find some interesting things like a big drop all of a sudden in why is there a drop in female civilian personnel? And later we're going to look at what consequences might that have. Here there's a big increase in the number of non-military personnel in 2018. Again, could be of interest. Same with 2020, increase in female personnel. Here there's a big increase in neighboring nations. So this is all stuff that, of course, we know anecdotally, like it's in the news, we know. But I think to have it visually there and to be able to correlate it quickly to fluctuations in conflict dynamics might be of interest. Also here we see there's an increase in uniformed personnel, gender. I did a quick calculation here, and if you can see the bottom line, female personnel facing more risk, there's an 8.3 fatality versus only a 5.8 increase in female personnel. So that might be something that, that could be explored. Women are facing more risk relative to the increased participation. Now we move on to UNMIS, and it's sort of more of the same, but you can see how there's different proportions. Here we see that international has increased. Percentage of female to total uniformed personnel, quite an increase from around 2.5 to around 8. So all of this is to really ask, data. So what? What demographic compositions are most effective in guaranteeing stability? Is that a little, are we going to go there? Sure, let's go there. And let's try to see what proof is there, what evidence is there. Are these different in different geographic contexts? So what works in one context might be different in another contexts. Are these different for internal and cross-border conflict? Again, Chido, my research partner, pointed out that we're collecting ACLA data for both internal and armed conflict involving foreign actors. And there was quite a lot of work there done by Chido. So thank you, Chido, for that. But we filtered out just the armed conflicts that included foreign fighters. So you see the red line is fluctuation in conflict events, including foreign fighters. So we can test for that. We have a third partner who's not here, but is fundamental to the team. Dr. Meli Kandemir is Associate Professor of Machine Learning at the University of Southern Denmark, also the founder of the Adaptive Intelligence Lab. And he's trained a recurrent neural network to investigate which characteristics, which we've here called diversity indices, are most correlated with stability, both internally and cross-border. So findings so far, the variables taken together do correlate with stability from 1 to 5 months into the future. So there is a connection. And in progress is we're trying to figure out the relative weight of the contribution from gender, origin, and status. And we have just yesterday, Meli sent us this, which is a teaser for just a MONUSCO case study. More to follow when we get the publication out in a few months. But essentially, what we see here, to quickly describe the graph, is this bar chart here on the right is the error if we use all the data sets. And then these 3 bar charts to the left are what is the margin of error if we take out one of the data sets. So if we take out the status information, we see that the margin of error decreases. So there is some connection there with the stability. If we take out the region, it also decreases relative to using all the information. And if we take out gender information, that's where we see the biggest decrease. Remember, this is decrease in error, so it's a double negative. It means that essentially there is a connection there that I think merits to be explored. So this is just a case study, a work in progress. But again, thanks to both Accept and to Ayam and his team for allowing us to play with this data. And more to come soon.
Thank you so much. Can we go back to the other slide deck? So by the way, this is also the first time I've seen the findings. So thank you so much for that. That's really, really interesting. So for now, we wanted to put everyone here in the group to work on figuring out what the research agendas should be, but also what are the, to play around with the data that is now available on the Peace and Security Data Hub and help us answer some key questions. So we put together this breakout session format. There are 6 what's it called? Four corners of this room, each with a data menu. And we hope that as you separate out in the next 40 minutes, you will help us in those corners to answer 3 questions on the boards. The first question is what is your favorite features of psdata.un.org and how might they help your organization? Second question is what kind of research question does the PS Data Hub help address? Maybe brainstorm a little bit in groups. And then finally, if you're the developer of the Peace and Security Data Hub, what features would you like to add and what data sets would you like to add? And then we're going to ask each of you to report back through a volunteer in the groups. Did I forget anything, Naoko?
No, absolutely. And then we have online participants here, and you can look at the Miro board. All online participants are invited to post their comments and opinion on Miro board. So now we are sharing the Miro board on the online chat, and we have our online moderator, Daniela, in line, who is also helping you to post and share the opinion and report back at the end of this workshop. Daniela, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Is everything okay online?
Yes, it should be.
Great. Looking forward to hear back from you guys. Okay, so I hope we can just light up the in-person venue. And we would like everyone to stand up.
We need some music.
Yes, we need music. It's afternoon in New York, after lunch. Absolutely.
And feel free to use this time as well to network and do your whatever you need to do. But as long as you're in the meeting and as long as you're networking about the data that is available on the Peace and Security Data Hub, we're really happy for it. Please do explore the Data Hub, pull up your laptops, psdata.un.org, and go through the data sets that are there.
Yes.
We'll reconvene.
Absolutely. So we have 4 boards available in this room. This board is about peacekeeping operations and the performance and the planning. And there is a list of data you can find on Peace and Security Data Hub. You can quickly take a look by using your mobile phone, your laptop, and share your thoughts answering these 3 questions. So this is peacekeeping operation. And here there is another whiteboard, which is talking about Security Council and diplomacy data, which is actually more focused on text data. So if you're interested in natural language processing, text mining, then probably you'd like to go to that whiteboard. And that board over there, Eduardo, which one is it?
Country-specific.
Situational data.
Oh.
Exactly, yeah. So if you are interested in looking at a very specific country data, which you are not expecting to find on the Peace and Security Data Hub, so please go visit there and then post your thoughts. The last one here is very exciting, gender. So if you're interested in integrating gender in the peace and security discussion by using data, please come this board and post your opinion. So we are allocating 40 minutes for discussion?
Yes.
Okay, so 40 minutes starts now. Okay, everyone, time is up. Let's come back to the plenary meeting. And then if I can ask you, please bring your whiteboard to the front of this meeting room. Thank you very much. Let's put that on the podium. Yeah, why not? Thank you very much. And I see some online discussion as well. Thank you so much for posting and sharing your thoughts. Okay, so I would like to invite 4 volunteers, actually include with Daniela on online session. So we would like to invite 4 volunteers. For each of you, please quickly summarize your discussion, highlight some interesting finding, opinion. Perhaps we can start with the country-specific situation data. Kader?
Yes, thank you. We basically skipped questions, A and B mostly, and we really focused in what do we want out of the hub and out of the repository. But in general, at the macro level, and as we were skimming through looking at the metadata that's available, and thank you for that and the efforts, we know it's not easy to get that done. We were also thinking about can we also have additional metadata, essentially, how is the data being collected and what quality controls are in place? Obviously, we know, whatever the organization in this room, in-house, we have our own challenges with that as well. But I think it's good to be a lot clearer about that. There's also a need for, we mentioned a bit more explanation about what Secretary General's report, and we, in two different examples and two different asks, we are aware, given the sensitivity of certain data sets, that some of it just simply can't be publicly facing. So you will have to have different levels of access or a data sharing agreement to access certain data. The other data set to that was, for example, the presence of armed actors, which sometimes you can discreetly get if you ask the right person in Mogadishu or wherever you are. The other asks that came from our group, one of the more interesting ones is the interagency task force meetings. What are the main conclusions? What agencies actually attend or don't attend those meetings on a regular basis? The hotspots of fatalities, their different locations. That also relates to the incidents. There was a reference to incidents in buffer zones in Cyprus, but it would be good to have a more comprehensive or access to comprehensive data sets of incidents in all countries where there are operations on the ground. Yes, so inevitably we will see more data being uploaded to the repository online, but it would be good to have a quick snapshot or description of the data sets, including information on the metadata, so that you could basically more quickly get a grip of what data is available. There was also reference to missions that might have a cross-border monitoring mandate, or some information being collected on cross-border population movements, arms trafficking, trade, etc., whatever it might be. We also, if it's possible, to ask for an ability to get a quick visualization of the actual data set. So you can have like 2 panes on the one, especially if it's on desktop. Sorry. A request here to publish country-specific surveys on perceptions by the missions. So yes, that's come up in a lot of the different sessions these last 2 days. So perceptions and social media, if there's any available data on that as well. And lastly, there's quite a big ask here as well, but no doubt you'll take notice of it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Connor. Thank you very much, Connor. Okay, next, any volunteer from a gender discussion? Thank you. Yeah, please come over.
We had a very quick discussion among 6 of us. I think we were 6 of us, right, Ben? We were 6. Andrea, I don't know where's Andrea. Yeah, there you are. So please fill in if I miss out on any of the features that we spoke about. We started with searching for these pointers in the hub, and we were able to sort of quickly identify certain features that we thought would be helpful in the hub. The number one that we suggested was, right, the search is not keyword specific. It only searches on the title of the data set. It doesn't go inside the data set. Perhaps if there is no column on gender, the gender doesn't show up as the number of data set. And if you do search on gender or on a column name, the number of search results is very different. We had 40 first, and then we had 12. So the search needs to be looked at as to whether the search function is keyword specific or is it title specific. The second one that we found was it was not friendly on the phone. The app needs to sort of adapt to the phone. And we had some concerns over duplication. What we meant by that is that certain data sets are reusable, or perhaps the sources of these data sets also exist in other organizations, perhaps beyond Peacekeeping Hub. There is also perhaps UN Women who also have the same theme or the same thematic data set that's available. So tagging them would help is what we kind of proposed. That is, themes to be tagged as a feature. And then we said more information about the data source itself, like where is this source coming from is not listed in the hub yet. So that would kind of give us the interoperability feature that we were talking about. And the description of column names in the data sets needs to be also improved. We searched for a data set on reporting violation of women human rights, and the column names were abbreviated. We didn't know what those columns meant. Yeah. Other than that, for the research topic, data set completeness, I think this was highlighted by one of our colleagues in the team. She suggested that having a thematic-based data set that will help us identify other data sets that are correlated to this data set. Like perhaps we said that if there is a theme or topic of human rights and women's human rights, if there are 23 other data sets that are correlated to this data set, if that can be available for the research topic, that will help for the research. And I think our favorite feature that was reported by the team is when was the last updated is available in the hub. And also the transparency about limitations, about what is available. And I think we also spoke about, I think I covered almost all of it, yeah? Did I miss anything, Andrea? No, I think so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Nusra. All right, so the next is Security Council and the Diplomacy Data. Any volunteer? Yeah, thank you so much. Please come over. Quick summary.
Thanks. Volunteer is a strong word, but I will try to represent my group of very talented and intelligent people well by giving the Data for Dummies version. So we were very efficient in our group in trying to just go through the questions in order. So I think the first reaction was just that it is extremely clean, clear, and there was good UI and UX, which I know what that means. So I think it was really easy for all of us to use, and so that was a plus on our side. Addressing what the research topic might be, we had a look at the data menu and tried some of these, so that we didn't really expand beyond it, but we explored some of the options that were provided on the menu, let's say. And we got this idea of everything and nothing, because obviously there's so much data, so it's hard to really pick a topic, but if you're going through, there is, you can zero in. So we picked, as I mentioned, two of the options to really extrapolate on, and one of them was the elected member presidency for the Security Council. We really liked that the visualizations of the data that you could see very clearly, and that it does group together sort of a disparate group of member states. But it would have been really nice to be able to break it down a little bit more. So really look at sort of regional dynamics, who has been on the council for a longer period of time, the amount of times that they've served, for example, would be a good thing to look into, as well as looking at sort of another option that was given was vetoes since 1946, and being able to really look into, for example, verification of political trends through patterns. So if there's a certain topic that's raised on the Security Council that's put to a vote, then how often are certain member states vetoing what? So those might be research questions that you could ask based off of this data set. Things that we thought were missing or that could be improved were better geographic explanation or code book. Actually, I'm not sure what this one is now that I'm thinking back to. Does everyone else understand? Okay, we're moving forward. Timeline, being able to disaggregate start and end data. So they're just sort of a grouping of sets, like it starts from 1946 to forward, but if you're able to disaggregate a little bit further, and then more than the metadata. So why would there be a break in timeline on reporting of certain data? Why is there something missing? Is this just because there is no data, or is there a strategic reason for that? Okay, and thanks.
Thank you very much, Brittany. Okay, the last one, peacekeeping operation performance and planning. Yes, please, Andrea.
Thank you. So, I'm represented by a very diverse and motivated group. So I'm going to start from the C, which is basically the things that we would like to see. Basically, a few things that suggestions that we have. So in the metadata, we did not find the aggregation rule for the indicators. So basically, if you want to see, let's say, an indicator for the whole of African missions, how do you aggregate these indicators? Like, do you do a weighted average using weights from the population of the country, or what kind of weights do you use? Then we noticed that in the expenditures, the amounts were not clear. Like if it's like millions, dollars, thousands of dollars, then it would be useful to have some ID codes for the emissions, so that when you try to merge if you want to merge data, that would like make it easier to have some standardized codes. What else? Oh yeah, it was, well, yeah, we say also that the code book is hard to find. So what is the the name of the variable? What does it stand for? The metadata file would maybe could be made available in XML, and then what this is one into. Oh yeah, so there were like in the in the data there is the units. Sometimes it's not like there is. It would be useful to have like a column that tells what unit the variable is expressing. So if it's percentage, or if it is points in some cases, or something else. Then yeah, what research questions? I mean, I think the cool thing of having all this data there is that you can try to merge the data and trying to find causality, or basically try to see what effect the expenditures in a certain mission has on the results. And yeah, I think that would be really cool to do. And yeah, we thought it was very user friendly, and yeah, good visualizations, and also data stories are very nice.
I'm very happy that you noticed that. And then now turning back to Daniela, who is coordinating online discussion. Daniela, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Great, loud and clear. Can you share some online discussion, please?
Yes, of course. So we focused primarily on the third question. The first question, there was some comments on like API features and how that was good. What kind of research questions does it address? We did get some feedback saying that tracking historical trends, that it's very useful for that. Mm-hmm. However, the majority of the conversation focused about like what they would want to see and what they would want to include in
right. Yeah. Can we expand the third component, please, on the screen?
So let me know if you can see on the screen. Well, there we go. Well, I've zoomed in. But yes, a lot of it has been about being able to see the totals on like monthly and weekly intervals for like data, as well as being able to see more data points on like peacekeeping operations.
The pink box below. Yes, the pink box below. Thank you so much. Great. Perfect.
Yes, the pink, there you go. Perfect. So yes, so a lot of it has been in being able to include data that gives totals on monthly and weekly intervals, as well as adding data points on peacekeeping operations data sets. But on top of that, there's been a lot of suggestions about adding comprehensive planning and performance assessment system indicators, as well as like some suggestions about adding a little bit more sensitive data, such as the number of violations of SOFA agreements by mission, violation type, by date, by region, in order to meet, to be able to show like public accountability of state actors, and whether, it's like member states understand how effective their funding is and consider such obstacles. They also suggested to have data that track the attendance of training programs. So what trainings were offered post-deployment. This would allow, some accountability to see who is attending what programs and then how the numbers look on that side. Other suggestions were indicating number of incidents UN troops failed to act when commanded to do so. So again, a little bit more sensitive data without listing troop nationalities. It would help incentivize troop performance without naming and shaming. Helpful to know how often UN troops responded to incidents of violence against civilians within missions per geolocation and per week, if possible. Even though it's sensitive, categories of actors that were involved in incidents as well. A few more, number of community lives and assistance per mission and region within mission, disaggregated by gender, language expertise, and how many hours, a number of times such CLAs were called to assist mission personnel. Also listing how different types of mission personnel use CLAs. And then here, the last one, which compounds different country troops were stationed within missions at specific dates, including troop numbers of their locations. So yes, that's which compounds different country troops were stationed in. And the number of incidents and dates in which civilians fled to UN compounds for safety during violent events. Geographic location, how many troops were present at such locations and how many civilians. How long did civilians remain at such compounds? So as you can see, a lot of it is, there is a lot of data sets that they want to see on various topics. I like that, there's a mix of specific examples and also on how they would want to see it. So whether it's monthly or weekly. So it was a pretty good discussion.
Great, Daniela, thank you very much for your feedback. All right, so now we are moving to summarize this discussion.
Is this on? Yeah, brilliant. I don't think there's not much summary to be done. We have our work cut out for us in the Peace and Security Data Hub. We're only 2 people and with a little bit of development resources to broker that data access. But if you are interested in working with us to help, it's always easier when there is an academic or partner who actually is requesting the data, provides us with an excuse to go out internally and pull the data and make it available on the Peace and Security Data Hub. That's what we did with Eduardo's research, so thank you so much for that. Do reach out to us. Most of you have my card by now, I think. Also, you can find us on psdata@un.org. We're happy to broker data access. And I also wanted to just quick shout out to the UN Library and UNMAS. Those are 2 entities that UNMAS for their work in peace and security that really is very heavily data driven. We hope to make some of their data available on the Peace and Security Data Hub soon, but just to give them some visibility of their data work. Very evidence-based organization with a clear ties to the peace and security community. And then the UN Library, always underfunded, but always also useful, maintain some of the best data sets within the UN system, and we hope to make some of those actually available on the Peace and Security Data Hub. If you're interested in that, they do have a public-facing API, but they don't want to give it out to the public because they don't have the capacity to absorb the volume. But if you're interested in the specific types of UN documents on peace and security, we can help make a data set available and publish it to the Peace and Security Data Hub. So those 2 entities, and then I think for the rest we just have a lot of work to do. But thank you so much for all that. We'll have a written summary, I guess, of this event. We'll probably send it around internally. So thank you so much for taking part in this, and please use the Peace and Security Data Hub for whatever research you might wanting to do. I think that's it, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I cannot believe I will say this, but for the first time, somebody is making my life complicated by finishing the session earlier. A little bit of joke, but thanks, Sayam and the team. This was really, really great. I actually have so many things I would not like to end this. Like, I think this amazing workshop that you did could just continue, but we are at the end of the day 2, and we don't have an official closing of the conference because it's not the end of the conference. So this is a reminder. This is just the end of day 2. We still have 3 days to go. So please look at the agenda. There are so many amazing sessions of people who were not able to join us in person and who are doing some amazing work across the world. We do have wine and cheese reception that will come after this, and we are grateful for Google for hosting this and for hosting us here. But before that, can I have a huge applause for our technical team as well? Like, guys are really, really amazing. Thank you so much. And now can you return the slide to the back to the previous one? I know we are all super tired, but I do want to keep it like at least for 5 minutes on the Data for Peace community of practice. And I think I started the conference with this and saying that this is basically your event and your space, and all of the things that you heard in the previous 2 days were crafted by the community of practice. We had people approaching us and saying, why did you choose this? Why did you choose that? And we are always crafting the topics and the agenda with the inputs of community of practice, right? And you will get this is like a soft announcement of evaluation that you will receive after this to tell us not only your impressions about the conference, but also what are those topics that you want to deal with as a community of practice. So this is what we did previous time. And then with all of these topics, we crafted the 5 days of this conference. So at this point, I want to open a floor for you and then to ask you, what do you think should be part? Was there anything that was missing? What are the topics that you would like to cover? What you would like to emphasize more? And now I'm not thinking only about the conference, right? I'm thinking about the broader work of this community. Is there anybody who would like to share? Yeah.
I can say.
Can we have a second mic, maybe?
No, I don't think it's necessary.
So just that people online can hear you as well.
Just a thought I've had. Sometimes it's hard to know what this data is useful if there's no case studies of how exactly it's used and how it changes a policy decision. So I'm thinking maybe next year, instead of data to decision to data. Like, you start with the decision that somebody needs to make, and then from there you look at what data is available to help make that decision.
Thank you. That's super useful and kind of revolutionary as well. We are again mixing the things, which is a good idea. Anybody else? Okay, people are here. We have a question.
Connor.
No, just very briefly, I mentioned it yesterday. A lot of us are humanitarian organizations and focused on the crisis and the emergency, and which unfortunately seem to be unending these days. But also shifting gear, how can we look at resilience, coping strategies, and solutions? What is the data we need to help inform that thinking?
Great. So I can maybe switch from the topics themselves to the community itself. Is there anything that you feel it's missing as members of this community?
Yeah, for me, it was an amazing opportunity to meet with the civil society people, academia people, me, myself, coming from the UN. It was such a great opportunity. And I think we can also, like, based on the confidence, the community we already built, we can also kind of try to reach out more to the data scientist community and perhaps like a more computer science community to show that there is so much needs from our side to get the support from them, and then they can actually like utilize our needs for the future development of like a data or like LLM machine learning system. So that's a kind of like a future collaboration I would expect.
Perfect. That's great. Exactly what we were trying to do to build the bridges between different communities as well. I think we have quite a bunch of data scientists present here as well. Maybe more links with academic researchers as well. And yeah, another one.
Sure. Thank you very much. Maybe in the same line of thought, I was wondering, for those of us who are based in New York, maybe those who've joined remotely, would it be a good idea to have a user group where maybe we could meet once a month or so, and to galvanize these ideas more instead of just waiting until sometimes next year. So just having a user group to this effect, Data for Peace user group, for example, whether NYU would host such or the UN, but just a thought.
Like an expert group in data.
Correct.
Okay.
I think there are such groups in different tech environment where you have like maybe Java developers or Python developers, they meet, or Microsoft people working for Microsoft technology, they meet for, or even Google. I believe there are some type of groups like that across the tech industry mostly, but I think this could apply to us as well.
That's a great idea. Thanks for sharing that. Well, we will count on CIC based in New York. I'm looking at Eugene to facilitate something in person, but I'm also cheering for an online one. I think we developed a community across the world, which is really amazing in this field, in Data for Peace field. So I think that's a great idea to facilitate something on a monthly basis. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, just wanted to build on that point exactly. I'm Gray. I'm from the State Department. I haven't met many of you, but I don't think Corrado's here. But just to say, I mean, the community of practice of like-minded data folks working in the peace building kind of sphere. That's what built CRAF'd. And initially, we came together over online meetings monthly, every couple of months, and we recognized we had a common problem, and then we eventually came to a common solution. So yeah, I just wanted to fully support that and happy to be involved in whatever way.
This is super motivational as well to see what can come out as a result of such meetings, right? When you facilitate something on a regular basis. And we would not be here without CRAF'd as well, so thank you, CRAF'd. But this is also an invitation, something that we talked with Kerstin and Antje, and also asking you as a community if there is anything else that you expect from CRAF'd, right? What role can CRAF'd play in the entire broader ecosystem, apart from, of course, supporting the organizations that you're already supporting? Feel free to reach out as well and send your messages, and we will pass them to CRAF'd. We have another question.
It's on.
Yeah. No, for me, it's more like I'm coming from the outside, from the private sector, and we're always building tools and solutions, with a commercial side and in our site. But being here, it's really been helpful to just see, where does the for good sector stand and what are those needs. So just giving me ideas. I'm reflecting a lot, and like, how can our products be more specific, catered to this sector, rather than try to get something from the commercial side and adapt it to here. So thanks to everyone for putting out a lot of your ideas and work here.
Thank you. I'm moving to this part of the room as well. I don't want you to feel neglected. If there are any questions from this side. comments, impressions? Okay, we have one here.
I'll make a comment just sort of about the relationship with the private sector to pick up on that. And I say this is somebody who worked in big organizations, largely in and around the public sector for most of my career before moving to the private sector. And I think conversations like this, where we start with the problem and then we think about a case study, is really, really helpful for us to learn from each other. But I think if you did go upstairs, or you did go and you speak to somebody at Microsoft, or you speak to somebody at Esri, for example, I mean, there's all this work being done in the GIS community that you go to a GIS conference and it's a GIS conference. And then there's like all these other data science conferences. And so I think the work that's being done here would benefit from some element of having a booth where the Tableau team could show off their latest stuff and hear from you. Because a lot of what we try to do, I think, is use open source technology that is great, but the efficiency gained by having access to something like Power BI, where they've really thought about the user experience, goes a really, really long way, and they don't know if we don't tell them. So I just to echo that point, I think it's a really good one. We'll just need to find a balance. I say this in the private sector, of not overreaching to that end, because then they can come in and swallow everything. So it's always just a balance as we think about those things.
I think we managed to create the balance with Google here, right?
You did.
But we did have, that's a very good point. We had a cooperation with Esri, with Tableau. Previously, we had workshops as well that we organized together, more hands-on workshops that we are hoping to bring back to the events that we are organizing. So thanks. We had another one here.
I'll just give you just a comment and a perspective from perhaps the oldest person in the room. When we wrote the 2011 World Development Report on Conflict, Security, and Development, we had a couple of data sources. We had ACLED, we had Uppsala, we had a couple of other people we could call on, a lot of researchers who had written papers, but we did not have the ecosystem that has been built here. So compliments to Data for Peace, to CIC, to CRAF'd, but to the UN system also for leaning forward and making this data available, and to you all for working on it. It's really, even if you say, well, we've got so much work to do, there's so many things to do, it's really come a long way. So congratulations, and congratulations to you on the event.
Thank you so much, and I think this is a great note maybe to end with as well. Actually, this is how we started as well, with Monica noticing this, the similar thing, right? Just acknowledging what is the entire path that the entire community of practice went through, and how much we actually, from so much theory that we discussed like 5-6 years ago, went into, I don't want to say so much practice, but enough practice, right? We maybe took some things slower, but I think that's also sometimes smarter things, right? Thinking about doing things ethically and properly. Okay, I'm not sure, again, because we are a little bit early, if our reception is ready, but that's also another invitation for you to use the time and still mingle with each other. Is there still a person that you did not meet that is present in the room? There is. Okay, I see Anusha is nodding. Take the chance, go to that person, introduce yourself, and then treat yourself with a glass of wine and some cheese. And before that, again, a huge, huge thank you to CIC, to CRAF'd, to Google, and the biggest thank you to you, first of all, as participants and organizers of the session. So another applause for you.